Love. We have been obsessed with it as a society and as a culture right from the beginning of time. In fact, love is the most common theme in every culture that has ever existed. This should come as no surprise, considering that we were made out of love from a loving Creator, and our purpose in life is to love. We were made to have fellowship with God. We were made to love our families, our enemies, our neighbors. All of God's creation we were made to love. So it should just come as no surprise that we are so obsessed with it. You see it in movies, and music, and books. Love is everywhere. I mean, think of the radio top 20. How many of those songs have to do with love? We're obsessed with it. This should not come as a surprise. Man was made to love. There's also two other things that are present with the human condition. And that's what this message is about, is the three things that are ever present in our human condition. There's love, there is our rebellious or sinful nature, also known as our flesh, and there's free will. It's one of the awesome things about our Creator is God made us with a free will. We do have the decision to choose, react with everything that we do. Every day before we even get out of bed, we can decide, are we going to be positive or negative that day? We can wake up and be thankful for all the many things that God has put in our life, the fact that we have modes of transportation, that we have jobs, the loving families that we have, the friends that God has blessed for us to know. Or we can decide to give in to negativity. We can literally despise a day before we even know what that day holds. So much of life is mindset, and I'll get into all that later. But first I'm going to get into the history of mankind and where it all began. You can find the beginning of our creation in the Garden of Eden. God created man out of his own image. God created Adam and Eve, and God created them out of love. God wanted companionship. Our purpose is to have a relationship with God. That's the reason for our creation. And the amazing thing about it is that Adam happened to get deceived. God didn't want us to be mindless robots. If he wanted us to be, he could have made us that way, but he didn't choose to do that. God gave us a free will. And even in the first two people that existed, Adam and Eve had a free will as well. And that actually proved to be a negative thing in their situation because they were deceived. God told them there was one tree that they could not eat from. And what did they do? The same thing that we do in our lives a lot of the time. We do whatever we're told not to do. And that's part of this rebellious nature that I'm going to get into. Adam gave into rebellion. Adam and Eve both, as a pair, gave into rebellion and were kicked out of Eden. And therefore, mankind was left with the human condition that we now have. Every person that's born is born into this human condition. It didn't take long for sin to develop, which sin I define as going against God's law. Anytime that we go against one of God's laws, we're sinning. And it didn't take long to see the first sin occur way back in the garden. Shortly after that, Adam and Eve had sons, Cain and Abel. And as you know, as the story goes, Cain killed Abel out of jealousy. So it was Cain's heart, his rebellious, sinful nature, his flesh, doing an act of free will, which was murder. And the same is present today with every human being on this planet. Can you imagine the amount of money we'd save on psychologists if we all just realized that we were born with a sinful nature? The problem with the humanistic point of view and a lot of atheists' line of thinking is that if there is no God, if there was no Creator, then man is left to judge ourselves. And that's, the ACLU and a lot of people buy into that philosophy that man is its own judge and that societies, judge each other and that, culture defines who you are. And that's totally not true. The danger in this line of thinking is that we tend to grade on a social curve. In school, you grade on a curve. I thought it was great. You take the sum of everyone's score and you base it on everyone else's score, and it, usually affects your own score. And so we do that when judging ourselves. We judge ourselves with a social curve. What I mean by this is sometimes we think that we have to be good because there's so many other people that are worse than us. We're always looking for people that are worse. If we lie, we think, well, at least I'm not this guy. Or, if we do something wrong, we think, well, at least I don't murder, I'm not Charles Manson. The problem with this thinking is that even Charles Manson had people that were worse off than him. There's always going to be someone worse than you, so you can't judge yourself in that way. Whereas when God judges you, God says, I'm a holy God. I'm a perfect God. We can't base ourselves off of other people because we're all flawed. Our entire human race is born into a human condition. You can see it very present with babies. When a young child is born, it doesn't take long for them to rebel. You know, with my wife working in childcare for so many years, I used to go in and bring her lunch and I would observe. It's amazing how early kids begin to bite, hit, shove. It comes natural to them. So it's no surprise. The only thing that changes as we get older is we start being held accountable for our actions. We don't outgrow it. We don't outgrow our human condition. We always have that first influence. You can't seriously tell me that when someone cuts in front of you in traffic, your first reaction isn't good. You aren't happy. As the old saying goes, what's easy to do is not always what's good to do, and what's good to do is not always what's easy. And that's a great phrase because it's so true. If you're doing what comes natural, you're generally not doing what's right, unless God has made a change in your heart. And that's what our goal should be, is to ask God, change my heart, Lord. Make me to live for you. If we're truly living for God, then those things start becoming natural. But right out of the womb, our natural condition is to do bad. How many of you, when your bedtime was 9 or 9:30, would try to stay up till 9:30 or 10? Another example. How many of you, when you weren't allowed to watch a rated R movie, could not wait to go to a friend's house to watch one? We naturally are born disobeying authority. We have a rebellion in us. All of us do. Every single person on this planet does. We've become so self-righteous as a society. There are so many people out there that preach a message that humans are inherently good, that there's good inside of all of us. And that's only true if you have God inside of you. I'm not saying that there's people that don't know God that aren't good people. I'm not saying everyone that's an atheist is a bad person. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm getting at that we are born with a sinful or rebellious nature. So, in this I have to say that our free will comes into play all throughout life. Before you even get out of bed, you have so many choices to make. Life is about choices. So what I'm trying to get to you today is that love is the basis of all things. We're created for love, we're created to love. We have a natural rebellion that's deep inside of our heart. The only answer to that is God. Ask God, help change my heart, Lord. Help my free will to line up with your will, because that's really our goal. Our goal is to have our will line up with God's will. Our purpose is to love. You know a tree by the fruit that it bears. There are so many Christians out there that are full of jealousy and greed. We get angry. We don't forgive people. If someone offends us, we get all bent out of shape. The world views us. A tree is known by its fruit. You know, so many people talk about karma and, you know, they put a word on it. It's really a biblical principle. You reap what you sow. There's no such thing as karma, not in the sense of the word karma. The word karma essentially defines a biblical principle, which is reaping what we sow. If you need love, take the time to be love. Plant seeds of love in your life today. Your mission field starts the moment you roll out of your bed. Be love to your family. Be love to your coworkers. Be love to your neighborhood. We're all of the same condition. We're all of the human condition. We're all born with a rebellious nature. Don't be surprised when people wrong you. They're just doing what comes natural. God help us if we just judge ourselves. No one is self-righteous. We all need to take a deep look into our heart and realize that Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. Today's society, more than ever, is in desperate need of a Savior. There's been a void between God and man ever since the fall of mankind back in the Garden of Eden. God's over here, man is here. There's a separation between us. The only way to bridge that gap is through faith in Jesus Christ. So I would like to invite you today, if you don't have Jesus as your personal Lord and Savior, would you just pray this simple prayer with me? Pray, Lord, I know that I'm a sinner. I was born of the human condition. My heart is flawed, Lord. I get jealous. I seek lust, Lord. There are so many things wrong in my life. No matter how many good deeds that I could ever do, I could never make it right, Lord. I realize that I need a Savior. I do accept your Son, Jesus, as my sacrifice. I accept the fact that he did die on a cross and was buried, and in 3 days rose again. Jesus did conquer death and the grave. And I know that one day, Lord, because I have accepted your Son, that you will call my name. I thank you for listening to this message. I'm praying for you. I appreciate you. I love each and every one of you. I hope that you stay tuned. Watch my next video. It's coming soon. I have lots of things I'm going to go over. I have videos coming up about sexual purity. I have videos coming up.